When we think of rivers, we usually just see them as, well, water flowing from one place to another. But they're so much more than that. They're actually nature's master sculptors, powerful artists that have been carving, shaping, and even building the world around us for millions of years. So, how does it all work? Let's dive in.
It really does seem impossible, doesn't it? That something as soft and fluid as water can literally wear away mountains of solid rock. But that's the incredible story we're going to unpack today. It's a story all about time, energy, and just relentless change.
So, to really get our heads around this, we're going to follow the life story of a river. Think of it like a journey, from its wild, energetic beginnings way up in the mountains, all the way to its calm, final meeting with the sea. You'll see that each stage has a totally different job and creates some absolutely spectacular landscapes along the way.
Okay, let's start right at the beginning, what we call the upper course. Picture it, we're high up in the mountains. The river here is young, it's fast, and it's just full of energy. Its main mission at this point isn't to wander peacefully, it's to carve its way straight down with some serious force. And the main tool it uses for this job has a name: vertical erosion. Now that's just a fancy way of saying it digs down. The super steep slope gives the water all the speed and power it needs to scour and scrape the riverbed, digging deeper and deeper and deeper into the rock.
And this whole downward digging process is what carves out one of the most classic mountain features you can think of, the V-shaped valley. But it's actually a team effort. The river does all the hard work at the bottom, cutting down. But at the same time, the weather, rain, ice, wind, is constantly weakening the valley's sides. Eventually, bits of rock break off, tumble down into the river, and get washed away, leaving behind those iconic, steep, V-shaped sides. Back in its youth, the river isn't quite strong enough to just blast through everything in its path. When it comes up against a huge chunk of really hard, resistant rock, it has no choice but to go around it. And this creates a series of hills, or spurs, that jut out from each side. As the river zigs and zags, they look like they're locking together, almost like giant puzzle pieces.
And of course, you can't talk about a river's youth without talking about waterfalls. The basic recipe for one is actually surprisingly simple. All you need is a layer of really tough, hard rock sitting right on top of a layer of much softer rock that erodes more easily. That simple setup is the stage for something truly dramatic. See, a waterfall isn't just sitting still, it's actually always on the move. The water rushes over that hard cap rock and smashes down, hammering away at the softer rock below. It carves out a deep hole called a plunge pool. This erosion eats away at the soft rock, undercutting the hard rock ledge above it. Eventually, with nothing holding it up, that ledge just collapses, and the whole waterfall takes a step backward, upstream. Now imagine that happening over and over for thousands of years. That's how the waterfall carves a deep, steep-sided gorge right behind it. All right, so after its wild and energetic youth, our river starts to mature a little. It's leaving the steep mountains behind and entering a much wider, flatter landscape. And here, its energy totally changes. It's not focused on digging down anymore. Now it starts to spread out. The key process now is called lateral erosion. Lateral just means sideways. The river starts to swing from side to side across the valley floor, eroding the banks as it goes and carving a much, much wider channel. This shift is what sets the stage for the river's most famous feature. And that feature, of course, is the meander. These beautiful looping curves you see in rivers aren't just random. Nope, they're a direct result of the physics of flowing water. Even the tiniest little bump in the channel can cause the main flow to swing to one side, and once a bend starts, it just naturally grows bigger and bigger. So the real key to understanding a meander is seeing the difference between the inside and the outside of the bend. Think of it like a racetrack. On the outside bend, the water has a longer way to go, so it flows faster. That speed gives it more energy to chew away at the bank, creating a steep little river cliff. But on the inside of the bend, the water is taking a shortcut, so it's slower, it's lazier. It loses energy and starts to drop all the sediment it's carrying, which builds up a gentle, sandy slope. So erosion on the outside, deposition on the inside, that's the engine that literally drives a meander forward. Now, this process makes the meanders grow more and more dramatic, creating these huge loopy bends. But what happens when a loop gets so big that it almost bends back and touches itself? Well, the river is about to do something pretty drastic. Sooner or later, the river finds a shortcut. The skinny little neck of land between the two bends gets narrower and narrower. Then, one day, during a big flood, the river just punches straight through. It takes the easier, shorter path. Suddenly, the main flow is on this new, straighter route, and the old meander loop gets left behind. The river drops silt and sand at the entrances to the old loop, sealing it off completely and creating this beautiful horseshoe-shaped oxbow lake.
And finally, our river reaches its old age. As it gets closer and closer to the sea, the landscape becomes almost totally flat. The river slows way, way down, and its job shifts one last time. It's not carving or widening anymore. Now it's building. The number one process here is deposition. Think about it. The river's been carrying this huge load of sand, silt, and clay all the way from the mountains. But now, with so little energy left, it just can't hold on to it anymore. So it starts to drop all that sediment, and in doing so, it creates brand new land.
And all this deposition builds up these huge, really important landscapes. Every time the river floods, it spreads a thin layer of fine, fertile soil called alluvium, building a wide, flat plain over time. The heaviest bits of sediment get dropped right at the river's edge, building up natural raised banks that we call levees. And where the river finally meets the sea, it forms an estuary, dropping the very last of its load to create things like mudflats and salt marshes.
And this is so important to remember. The timescale we're talking about. A feature like a floodplain isn't made overnight. It's built by thousands of individual floods happening over thousands of years, with each one adding just another little layer of soil, slowly but surely creating some of the most fertile land on the entire planet.
So let's just put it all together. This really sums up the river's entire life's work. In its youth, the upper course, it's all about vertical erosion, carving out those steep V-shaped valleys and dramatic waterfalls. Then, in its maturity, the middle course, it switches to lateral or sideways erosion, creating wide valleys with those classic meanders and oxbow lakes. And finally, in its old age, the lower course, it's all about deposition, building up vast floodplains and levees. So from a tiny little mountain stream to a wide, slow-moving giant, a river's journey is just this incredible story of geological change. It's a constant force, both destructive and creative, that has shaped our world for eons. And you know what? It continues to do so every single day. So next time you're out and you see a river or even just a valley, take a closer look. Is it a steep V or is it a wide, flat plain? Can you maybe spot the faint curve of an old, forgotten meander? The landscape is always telling a story, and now you know how to read it.